How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. I hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving. I certainly did. Now I got to start walking again and get back into losing. I've been losing weight, and then Thanksgiving happened. I'm sure that's the story for many of you, but it was good. We had a great time, and there's so much news to cover. So 877-973-7425 is the number, but I told Charlie, don't even open the lines for the first hour because there's so much for us to cover, and I'm starting with what I didn't expect to be starting with. We all knew it was coming, though. We'll get to Kash Patel and all the other stuff later. We got to start with the pardon. But remember, if you text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777, you can get the live stream, the show notes, the podcast, all that great stuff. But let's begin with the pardon of Hunter Biden. And let's start with the obvious portion first. Obviously, this was going to happen. Obviously. And understandably to a degree. I was on a group chat last night with a number of friends of mine, some of whom are very close to the Trump campaign. And even they were like, well, of course this was going to happen. I mean, it's a father and his son. He's got the power to do it. It's understandable. And most Americans are going to say, well, yeah, of course he was going to do this. The president can do this. No one else can. Lucky for Hunter Biden, his dad's president. And if you were his father, you would want to do it as well. And I think that's right. I actually think that's a fair statement. In fact, I got a lot of friends of mine who have texted me overnight, and they're deeply sympathetic to Joe Biden doing this. I myself, as a father of a son who would not do what Hunter Biden did, there but by the grace of God go us. But Hunter Biden did a lot of stuff, and we'll get into it. But as a father, I do think it's completely understandable. I do think it's understandable as a father, but there's a problem. We were assured that Joe Biden would not do that. We were assured not just by Democrats. We were assured by anchors. We were assured by reporters. We were assured by objective analysts. And all of them used it as a way to compare and contrast with Donald Trump to show that Joe Biden had superior moral character to Donald Trump. I think it's worth you listening to all of this in its entirety. I really do. This is from my friends at Grabien, Tom Elliott's team. He put this together. I want you to hear it. These are the voices of the American press corps and their pundits and their analysts and their reporters and their guests.
The presidential promise to put the law before a family.
I said I abide by the jury decision. I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Letting the world know that he will not wipe away the decision of 12 of his son's peers.
Was asked directly, and he has said he wouldn't pardon his son if he gets convicted.
Let's wait and see what happens if he loses.
Yeah, but he said it.
He's going to get pardoned by his dad. There's no question about that.
The president has ruled out pardoning his son.
Major commitment from the president, accepting the outcome of the trial and also pledging not to pardon his son.
So the challenge for him is really to continue to live up to his values when it was really personal, and he did that today.
It seems like a pretty normal, straightforward answer, but it takes new weight when we see what Trump is saying about the outcome of his trial, what we're hearing from other Republicans who say they don't accept the jury's verdict here in New York.
The contrast is profound. To sit there and say, well, I'm not going to intervene in the legal process, and I wouldn't pardon my son. One side, Democrats and Joe Biden protecting the justice system. And on the other, Republicans and Trump protecting Trump.
A current president of the United States has so much respect for the law that he has said he would not pardon his son. I mean, what again, it's all about the contrast.
President Biden saying, I will respect whatever this jury decides, versus Donald Trump after he was convicted on 34 counts, saying the entire system is rigged against him.
Their latest attack has been that Joe Biden has politicized and weaponized the DOJ, right? That was the whole argument around Donald Trump's conviction. And this week, of course, Hunter Biden was found guilty, and Joe Biden has very clearly said he would not pardon his son, he would not commute his sentence. How stark is this difference? I mean, how can Republicans keep making this argument now that Joe Biden has really put it out there? Where's Hunter? And he stood there in a courtroom, flanked by his family, and he's accepted his sentence.
He is not pardoning his son, which he could do. These are federal charges. Right. He is not doing that. He is not doing it because he is living what it means to have a rule of law in this country. Yeah. And then if you want to know if he believes it, you could actually see what is happening with his own son.
The president, Anderson, has been really clear that he is going to accept the outcome of the trial no matter what happens.
Washington said, I am not running again, because he understood the self-restraint was absolutely essential to this country, so you don't have a king. He did not pardon his son. He did not order the Department of Justice to say, don't prosecute my son. So impressive.
Could have ordered the Justice Department to halt the prosecution of Hunter Biden, according to this court. Everyone understands he's a decent man.
I think Joe Biden has a chance here to stand up for the rule of law, to say the law is the law, no matter who it is, no matter if it's Trump or Biden. And remember, part of Trumpism's dangerousness is that it tears down institutions, important institutions of our democracy. So there is an opportunity here for Biden to say, the jury found him guilty. This is how it's supposed to work. Period, paragraph, end of story.
Have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
As I said last week, I will accept the outcome of this case and will continue to respect the judicial process as Hunter considers an appeal. The president said he won't touch it. He said he's not going to pardon his son. And it seems that Merrick Garland let it go through. How can the Justice Department be weaponized against Trump when all of that is happening?
The Democrats stand for the rule of law. Remember, law and order. And we've been saying that Trump's not above the law. Hunter Biden's not above the law. No one is above the law. And it is amazing to see the stark contrast between how Democrats handled today and how Republicans handled this whole thing over the last couple of weeks.
For years, these conservatives have been crowing about a politicized Justice Department, Biden politicizing it, and so on. What happened today? The Justice Department convicted the president's own son, his only living son. You heard the president say he would accept the outcome of the case. I know no other word for that, but presidential.
He even went so far as to say he wouldn't pardon his son. That's how much respect he has for the system.
The president has said that he will not pardon his son. What did you think of that?
I thought it was extraordinary. I mean, it was a moment of just moral clarity on the part of Joe Biden, and couldn't have been in starker contrast to the way Donald Trump has handled his own conviction.
He could still pardon him. He said he won't do that. All of that conduct, given that it's his son, is kind of, we should pause for a moment and think about how unbelievable that is. In a million years, if the shoe were on the other foot and Donald Trump was facing the prospect of his son being prosecuted by a Biden, if I had been held over, a Biden holdover or Obama holdover prosecutor, not in a million years would that have happened. So, some of the people on the right, the people who support Donald Trump, are trying to cast this as some clever ops program.
Yeah. Hunter Biden was found guilty by a jury of his peers, just like Donald Trump, because this is our justice system at work. The divide here is stunning, and it's a great reminder that one political party remains committed to the rule of law and the other doesn't.
Joe Biden has already proven he's willing to stand up for the rule of law in a way that we could all never imagine Donald Trump to do.
Pretty emphatic over the last few days that he does not plan to pardon or commute his son. What that really is him saying is, I don't plan to use the powers of the office, the powers of the presidency, to provide private relief for my family. In a sense, he's staking out a pretty bright line between being, as he says, a president and a dad. And that's not just an emotional expression. He's in effect saying, I don't think that I don't have a right, even if it's legal, and God knows it must be tempting, to use this power in a way that is not available to so many other Americans facing similar kinds of struggles. There's a kind of old school sort of flinty core to his conception of how you are to be in the system, how you are to be as a person, a moral person, and ultimately how to contend with questions of power. One of the things that anybody who spends time around Joe Biden comes to know is that he's had this long-running focus on how much he is bothered by abuses of power.
Will accept the verdict no matter what it is, and that he has ruled out pardoning his own son. Contrast that from what we hear from Donald Trump. And again, we have to underline, in no uncertain terms, President Biden saying, I will accept the outcome. I will accept what the jury decides here. That's the way our legal system works. And no, I will not pardon my own son if he is convicted.
And the contrast is so clear in terms of decency and principle and transactional guidance in terms of how you view the world.
It is still a good day for the United States that this conviction is a prime example of the way our judicial system is supposed to work. Even President Biden saying in a statement that he would respect the outcome of this case. Those words so completely contrast with what his opponent, now a convicted felon himself, continues to say about the U.S. courts.
The contrast to how Trump has behaved, how Trump has treated the rule of law. This was a good day for the system, good day for sort of America as an example of how the rule of law should work.
President Biden told David Muir that he would absolutely accept the verdict, whatever it was, and that he would not pardon his son, regardless. And today he said the same thing in a statement. Meanwhile, Donald Trump comes out and calls the justice system completely unfair. What do you think of that contrast?
There's the contrast of two different men.
Here is Joe Biden, who has lost a son who served honorably in the armed forces, who now has basically said, I will sacrifice my surviving son's future. I will allow him to serve a prison term if that's what's determined, because that is what the rule of law demands.
The president announces that he will not pardon his son. Do you think ordinary Americans give enough thought to how this system is a miracle, a gift to this country, a gift to democracy?
Y'all, that was 9 minutes. That was a 9-minute long montage. Overwhelmingly, by the way, from MSNBC. And again, it wasn't pundits. There were anchors in there. There were reporters in there. There were not just Democratic talking heads. There were lots of authors as well. Authors who want you to know how Joe Biden respects the system. For 4 years, I've been telling you people that Joe Biden was the Democrats' Donald Trump, and they couldn't see it. And they kept saying, no. Joe Biden would never do the things that Donald Trump does. He just did. I was right the whole time. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here across the nation. By the way, if you got my show notes today, that video was there. We made sure that we embedded the video in the show notes so that you could see it for yourself, and you could see it wasn't just the Democratic talking heads. 9 minutes. And what's remarkable is that Tom Elliott and his team at Grabian, they only spent they spent a lot of time putting it together, but that thing could have been 20 minutes long. We have been lectured for 4 years about norms and how it's the Republicans and Donald Trump who shatter the norms, who disrespect the rule of law, who are bad people. And guess what? Turns out it's the Democrats as well. I thought it was very interesting. The Bulwark kids, they were like, oh, this is very bad. This is very bad. And then they wrote a defense of it. And of course, they're all doing that. They're doing there are two sides of this, and Republicans pounce, of course, is obvious. They're doing the Republicans pounce. What I find very interesting, though, is that there are a few intellectual bright spots in the press who are pointing out that actually what Joe Biden did is far more expansive than any pardon Donald Trump ever gave. Donald Trump, when he pardoned anyone, including Steve Bannon, pardoned Steve Bannon for specific crimes. What Joe Biden did for his own son was to do a Gerald Ford pardoning Richard Nixon pardon. That is a blanket pardon for any and all crimes ever. He has blanketly pardoned his son in a way Donald Trump never did. Never did. And, here's the thing. I, as a father, again, I understand it. And you can already see the commentary today. I thought it was very interesting, though. Morning Joe, yes, I got up this morning, turned them on. They were talking about Donald Trump and Kash Patel, which we will get to. They were avoiding the Hunter Biden pardon as best they could. They couldn't avoid it altogether, but boy, did they give it just cursory service so they could move on. Look, y'all, you and I knew this was going to happen. We knew it was going to happen. It was obvious it was going to happen. But we were told not only was it not going to happen, but when any Republican voice, when any conservative voice on television questioned Joe Biden, we were lectured not by the Democrats, but by the reporters. How dare you question this man? We were lectured by reporters. How can you say this? Joe Biden has told us he's not going to do this. Well, it was obvious to all of us. And yet we were told otherwise. Therein lies the problem for all of this. You can't trust the press. And we have instincts about how politicians are going to operate, including Joe Biden, and we are repeatedly proven right. I said this morning in my morning piece, this is the if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor pardon. Because when Barack Obama said, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor, every member of the media told us, well, you can't challenge this. He said it. It must be true. And it wasn't true. But we weren't allowed to challenge it because Barack Obama said it. But by God, if Donald Trump tells a joke, they're going to get Daniel Dale on CNN to fact check it. The Democrats are always treated as if they're truth tellers. And then when they're shown to be liars, well, it was understandable. This is why no one trusts the press. Now, there's another angle in this. The press angle was really a big angle, but we'll get to the other when we come back. First, I need to tell you about my friends at Americans for Prosperity. In fact, this coming weekend, I'm going to be in Salt Lake City doing an event for Americans for Prosperity. They're a great group of conservative warriors around the country. They have chapters in just about every state, and they would love to have you on their team. All you have to do is go to americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. They put points on the board for free markets. They put points on the board for families. They put points on the board for common sense conservative reforms. They would love to have you help them put points on the board for common sense conservative policies across the country at the local level, the state level, and the federal level. All you have to do is go to americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. I'm a member of AFP. You can join me, and together we can fight for common sense conservative policy solutions across the country. Americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. Check them out today. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number 877-973-7425. You should subscribe, by the way, to my daily email. In the mornings, I send out a piece generally for everybody. But at noon, we send out our show notes. It's everything that I'm talking about in the show and a whole lot that I never get to, and then some. And like, for example, today, we have the montage of all these members of the media. Now, because you're a radio listener, if you text the word data, D-A-T-A, if you text the word data to 33777, not only do you get the daily email, but you get a discount on it as well. And now with the holidays, it's the perfect time to subscribe. So text data to 33777. You can also give it as a gift. You can give it as a gift. It's a great way to keep your neighbors informed as well. Text data to 33777. Follow that top link. Get a discount with the daily briefing, the show notes. You get it in your inbox every day that we do the show. Not on the weekends, although sometimes I send stuff out on the weekends. Okay, back to Biden and the pardon. Look, there's a lot of other audio out there that I could play today about the pardon. I'm the only one I really want to play here is this on CNN with Scott Jennings and John Berman and some Democrat.
Joe Biden is leaving office making the strongest possible case for Donald Trump that anybody could possibly make it, and that's that our government and our justice system is of, by, and for the elites and nobody else. He ran to banish Trumpism from our political system in this country, and he has left it politically and now institutionally the strongest possible political force in this country. It is a complete and utter failure by the head of the Democratic Party and the President of the United States. Never again do I want to hear, oh, Donald Trump's a liar. You can't believe anything he says. Donald Trump will abuse his power. Donald Trump will only use the system to benefit himself and his family and so on and so forth. Never again. I have one question for Karen, and that is, why did he need an 11-year blanket pardon going back to 2014 when Joe Biden was the vice president? We are sitting on the biggest cover-up of who knows what crimes, and Joe Biden amazingly knows exactly, roughly, when it started. He knows just about when it all started. He's leaving office in complete and total disgrace. He is a liar, and there is no other way to spin this today. This has nothing to do with Trump and everything to do with the character of Joe Biden.
Amen, amen. That's CNN. And by the way, I do want to give credit to CNN here, and I do mean this. You never saw in that montage, there were a couple people from CNN, and mostly it was the voices they were having on the air. But you never saw Jake Tapper or him in conversation with anyone. You never saw John King or him in conversation with anyone. You never saw Dana Bash or her in conversation with anyone. You never saw Wolf Blitzer or him in conversation with anyone. And the reason is because, and even they had one clip of Anderson Cooper, and they did cut out the part where he challenged the person. Because they all challenged anyone who said, obviously, Joe Biden was never going to pardon Hunter. Obviously, it was never going to happen. Because none of them believed him. And I want to give him credit because we blow him up on occasion. But I do think it's worth noting, overwhelmingly, that montage was from MSNBC. And even of those at CNN, yeah, there is Abby Phillips in there saying, no, Joe Biden said he wouldn't do this. This is the Abby Phillips, who also didn't act like she knew what the Ferguson effect was, even though she had written about it. And there are a couple others. What's her name, who gave my buddy Shelley Winters a hard time? She was in there as well. Laura Coates or whatever I think it was, questioning. Obviously, Joe Biden says, but you never saw the big guns at CNN. They all knew. And in fact, here's Ellie Honig, CNN's new legal commentator.
I want to read you something that the Democratic governor of Colorado, Jared Polis, posted about this. He's not okay with the move. He wrote in part, I'm disappointed that he put his family ahead of the country. This is a bad precedent that could be abused by later presidents and will sadly tarnish his reputation. Does this damage the justice system?
Well, I totally agree with the governor that this pardon will tarnish Joe Biden's legacy. I mean, Joe Biden, let's be clear here, he lied to us for a long time. He said categorically, I will not pardon my son. He said, I will take it off the table. And he couched it in very high-minded terminology. I respect the Justice Department. I respect the jury's verdict. Well, now he's gone back on that. I don't know how many people actually believed him. I certainly didn't. There's tape of me saying there's no way he's going to make good on this. He's absolutely going to pardon Hunter Biden. But as to whether this tarnishes the justice system, I don't think I would go that far. I think this, like I said, will go down on the list of ignominious presidential pardons. But I don't think law students 50 or 100 years from now are going to look back at this as a horrific miscarriage of justice. That,
yeah, look, he's right on that. The Justice Department under Biden did prosecute Hunter. They prosecuted him, and let's not forget some of the things they prosecuted him for relating to his guns. He was on drugs when he bought his gun. He tossed it in a dumpster in a gun-free zone near a school. His tax evasion stuff, and so many of the voices who said that his laptop wasn't a real story. In fact, some of them hired by CNN and other media outlets after carrying the water for the national security apparatus that said it was a Russian hoax. But the larger issue here, too, is one I need to repeat, and one I got lit on fire for, by the way. I got lit on fire for telling you what I'm about to tell you again. Joe Biden is a man who abandoned his children, his 2 living sons, after his wife and daughter died, so that Joe Biden himself could go be raised by the wolves of the United States Senate, including guys like Chris Dodd and Teddy Kennedy. And if you knew about them back in the day, those are the guys that Joe Biden was hanging out with, supposedly taking the Acela back at home at night to be with his sons every night, and then starting up an affair with Jill while she was married, and then they got married, and then they had another kid. And guess what? Of his 3 remaining children, his daughter with Jill and his 2 sons, one son died of brain cancer. Joe Biden insists he died in combat. He can't be honest with people about the story. And the other 2 kids had serious dependency issues, drug issues, among other things. Joe Biden's a terrible father. There, by the grace of God, go the rest of us. Joe Biden's a terrible father. Joe Biden's a man of bad character. Joe Biden has always been a man of bad character. And Joe Biden would not get out of the race for the president of the United States because his family wanted him to stay there for their own benefit. Joe Biden had to be forced out in a Democratic coup led by Nancy Pelosi to get him out of the race in favor of Kamala Harris, because she knew that even if Kamala Harris lost, Joe Biden was guaranteed to lose, and she wanted a chance to win. And Joe Biden and his family didn't want him to leave because he's not a good person. The media has trumpeted Joe Biden as a sign of good character. The media has trumpeted Joe Biden as the perfect contrast to Donald Trump. All we've got is Donald Trump with dementia. They're roughly the same age. Joe Biden is less orange. He's got whiter hair, but he's Donald Trump in the caricature the media makes of Donald Trump. Joe Biden has the corrupt drug addict son. Joe Biden has the daughter who has had drug dependency issues, and the diary. Let's not forget the diary and the questionable things she wrote in the diary that the media chose not to talk about. Time and time again, the American press corps has chosen to ignore Joe Biden. The media has chosen to ignore the family issues of Joe Biden. The media has chosen to ignore all of that drama. Your son dies of brain cancer. Your other kids are clearly struggling, and you decide to run for president of the United States. And when you get there, you can't give it up, even though it's obvious you are in decline. Joe Biden has always put himself first. Joe Biden has always put his family first. Joe Biden has never put the country first. Joe Biden used his dead son's memory as a cudgel against other people. He's not a good man. And you know what, you Democrats? You defended him and you covered for him for 4 years, and you got Donald Trump. Maybe you should be intellectually honest. Maybe, Democrats, you should stop lecturing those of us on the right. Maybe you Democrats should do some self-reflection, but I know you're not capable of doing it. You're already blaming racist black men for your loss. You're already saying it was out of your hands. You're already making excuses. You're not capable of the self-reflection that got you to Joe Biden, that got you to a pardon of Hunter Biden. All of you people said would not happen, and now none of you have the shame to recognize you two were played. None of you have the shame to recognize that you wanted to be played. None of you had the shame to recognize that you knew all along he was going to do this, and you just wanted a political cover to attack Donald Trump and Donald Trump's children, none of whom are under federal indictment, none of whom have drug addiction problems that you know of, none of whom have the issues that Joe Biden's surviving kids have. But you couldn't bring yourselves to be honest. You couldn't bring yourselves to truly assess the situation. I get lit up by my own side for the stuff I say about my own side, including Donald Trump. I get lit up all the time by conservatives, by Republicans. I get lit up by program directors at radio stations who say the audience is complaining you said something bad about Donald Trump. You know, at least I'm intellectually honest enough to hold my side accountable. You people attack me as some sort of leg humper for Donald Trump when I'm willing to call him out. You people couldn't even call out Joe Biden the entire 4 years he was president of the United States. You covered for him, you lied for him, you made excuses for him, you let him stay in office, and now you got Donald Trump. You got exactly what you deserve. And if you're willing to join me in an exercise of intellectual honesty, maybe you can start rebuilding your own party. But I don't know that you guys are capable of doing it. Joe Biden was not a good man. And if you really want to rebuild your party, you need to start with that fact. Joe Biden is not a good person. Joe Biden is not a good man. And Joe Biden does not have good character. Joe Biden is not the person you have for 4 years claimed that he was. And Joe Biden is only not running for president of the United States, not because Trump just won, but he was pushed out by the Democratic Party because he didn't want to give up power. He's no different from Donald Trump, despite all of your excuses for him. Joe Biden got power, and he couldn't bring himself to give it up. And in his 50 years in Washington, D.C., 50 plus years in Washington, D.C., he has regularly and routinely used that power to benefit his family. Look at his brother's lobbying contracts. Look at Hunter's lobbying contracts. Look at the amount of money his family has gotten. And as Scott Jennings pointed out, it's very curious, the start date on when this part goes into effect, everything after 2014. Why do you think that is? Well, if you know anything about Hunter Biden's laptop, you know when Hunter Biden started dropping dad's name to get a whole lot of good stuff done. And you know about the taxes and the prostitutes and the guns and the drugs. It's not a coincidence that Joe Biden's pardon was a blanket pardon that's, well, pretty spread out back to 2014. Very interesting precision in the dating of it. And you guys have never wanted to talk about it on the left. All right, now I need to talk to you about Vision Computer because, my gosh, Vision Computers is fantastic. And listen, right now in the holiday season, if you want a new computer but you're worried about, well, what do you do with your old computer, your kid's computer? Vision can migrate everything over to your new computer. So your emails go over, your apps go over, your settings go over, your preferences go over, your documents go over, everything goes over to the new computer. Vision takes care of everything when you get a new computer from them and you're replacing your old computer. And not only that, you get their 5-star service. So for the next year, if anything happens to your computer, you don't know what to do, you don't know where the file is, something just doesn't seem to be right, your email's flaky, your printer's messed up, Vision Computer takes care of you at no charge. You get a special number and they answer it. 15 seconds or less, you get the answer. They can even remote in and help your computer, fix your computer, figure out what's going on. They are miracle workers when it comes to technology. And again, you buy a new computer from them, you get their 5-star service for free. For $179 a year, you can get their service even if you're not a customer of Vision Computers, which is great for your family, for your business, whatever you need them for. VisionComputers.com or 404-COMPUTE. Call them at 404-COMPUTE. Tell them Eric sent you. You're going to save even more money. VisionComputers.com or 404-COMPUTE. My fellow Americans, it is a delight to be with you. And you know, I said this before Thanksgiving, but let me say it again. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I know what my ratings are, and you know, I get a lot of people all the time saying, I can't stand you. I wish they'd take you off my ratings. I'm afraid they're not going to, because I know how many people are listening. I may not be your cup of tea, but it's wild to me that so many of you want to listen to my voice. I don't want to listen to my voice. I was actually in Atlanta he went to the Falcons game. So a couple of I didn't wear my Chargers. I told one of the Chargers players I was going to be brave and wear my cap, but I didn't. I like the Chargers, and I have liked the Chargers for a while. And a couple of the players, I'm not going to say which ones, I don't want to get them in trouble. A couple of the Chargers players are fans. And so I went to the Falcons game, and I was walking up the street, and some dude, and I gotta say that it always does make me feel good when it's somebody young. It's not just people my age and older listening. It's young people. He's like, Erickson, I love you. Made me feel good. It's also a little weird. It's also very, very weird, actually. But it made me feel good. He and I also drive the same vehicle, so he's a man of great tastes. But nonetheless, I had a great time at the Chargers-Falcons game. The Chargers won, barely. But it was a good time. I gotta say I'm thankful for all of you, though, and I'm thankful for my family. We went to my in-laws in Carrollton, Georgia. I smoked 2 turkeys on my Rectech. By the way, for Christmas, as an aside, this isn't an ad. If you want a great pellet grill, you're looking at a Traeger. Don't get a Traeger. Traegers are poor quality and they're not going to last. I've got a Rectech. They're made in Augusta, Georgia. Now all of these pellet grill companies, their parts are they're made in China. It's going to be very hard to find one made in the U.S. that you can afford. But the difference between Rectech and these other companies is it's got higher gauge steel, so it's going to last a lot longer. And also, its computer components and board are made here in the U.S., not China, and they last a long time. I've had my pellet grill now for years from Rectech, and I have had mine longer than friends of mine who've gotten Traegers have had their Traeger. They've now gotten their second Traeger, and I'm still on my first Rectech. This isn't an ad. Again, I love the company. They're in Augusta, Georgia. They are good people. It is RECTEQ, Rectech. I smoked 2 turkeys on my Rectech, and they were a hit with the family. Man, I make wings on them. I make jalapeno poppers. I make a brisket. It does a great brisket. I had a big green egg for years, and I realized the purists out there, you're like, oh, look, I got a buddy of mine with an offset smoker where he's got to stay up all night burning wood to throw in the thing and stuff. No, I set my Rectech. The only thing I don't like is they had to do an upgrade, and they were required to do it. It wasn't them. The lawyers made them do it. I used to be able to turn my Rectech on with my cell phone. I didn't have to be near it. Now I actually got to go physically turn it on, but I can turn it off and I can control it by my phone. So I can be in the house and up the temperature, lower the temperature. Again, it's not an ad. I just love it. If you're interested in a pellet grill for Christmas, get a Rectech. You're not gonna be disappointed with it, and it's gonna last you a lot longer than your Traeger. I smoked 2 turkeys. I made a chocolate pie. I made a sweet potato pie. I made my gravy, and my gosh, did a lot of you text me pictures of your gravies, and I'm glad that my recipes could help so many of you. A lot of people texted me the recipes they made out of the little guide that I gave you, and the gravy was, of course, a hit for everybody. So I hope you had good eats. Now it's time to get back to clean eating and exercise. The phone number, 877-973-7425, if you want to be on the program. This hour of the show brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan. If you're buying a building, if you're building a building, if you need a heavy equipment loan, reach out to them, FirstLibertyGA.com. FirstLibertyGA.com. Tell them I sent you. The Frost family can help you. FirstLibertyGA.com. AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry. Everybody's talking about it. Billions of dollars invested, so buckle up. The problem is AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud. Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, Databricks, Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/Erickson, ERICKSON. That's oracle.com/Erickson, oracle.com/Erickson. Go check them out today.